Hi everyone. So thanks a lot for being here that early in the morning. So today we'll speak about educating developers and specifically like what experimental school, mostly in the US, tried. I became passionate about like education in general after like starting teaching master students. For a bit of context, I'm doing everything DevRel at BNB chain now. I used to work at Consensus on the DevRel team before. And yeah, like been in the industry for a few years, but like I started like 3 years ago teaching master students in Paris, and I became really passionate about education. And I think like there is a lot of thing in neuroscience and like a bunch of like techniques that we can use to teach developer better. And so that's what we will try to touch on today. So first, I will just start to, for those who listened to my presentation at ETC last year, so the broken model, like the first part will be like basically like the summary of my whole presentation I did last year. And then we will check like what experimental schools are trying, and the science that actually works, because they get some stuff right, but they also get some other stuff wrong. And what this means for developer education at the end, so like what we can apply from it. And you will see it's more complex than what we can think. So first, the model we have today, so the way we teach developers is like still a lot of companies are still doing that, which is like read the doc, copy the example, and ship it. Recently, we saw like a bunch of integration, like directly, like you can just like copy the markdown and pass it into your AI, right? But we cannot like stop here, right? We still spend a lot of time revamping the documentation to try to find the right phrasing, the right wording in your documentation. We have bootcamp and workshop, and usually those bootcamp and workshop, it's very tied to like companies' objective, right? Which is like we need some people to ship on our chain to survive, right? I don't know if you saw like the narrative of L2s right now, but it's not going super great. So like they really want like companies that will ask us DevRel to be like, okay, like you need to do this thing so people ship fast and they ship on the chain. So we never really optimize for technical depths and to like try to really teach people when they don't have these technical depths because we assume all of them have it, right? Which might not be the case. As you can see, like when I'm teaching Masters 1, I'm sometimes a bit surprised to see that a lot of people actually today really like delegate the entire like technical critical thinking to the AI since they are like, because we had the first generation, so yeah, it was like 2 years ago of like the full AI GPT student, and like since then they kind of like dedicate the entire thinking to like the AI. So they didn't really like grow the fundamentals. If you don't like have technical depth in your workshop, like they might not actually grasp what you need. And so this is like this is an education model, right? So like this one was kind of like the first try in France, but like basically we have this one size fits alls in education for like almost like 200 years, which is you have a professor, which is like teaching people, like 30 students on a chair in a room. And we never really changed the model even after internet arrived. And I think that's a mistake, right? Because with internet and now, especially with AI and all the ed tech kind of like startup, you can really try to change it. But we never tried. So then AI arrived, and you had like some interesting studies from Anthropic that like they're using AI, like so they did like kind of like standardized tests, right, for like a bunch of things. They're trying to see like what how AI is impacting developer like behavior. And so I can, if people want, actually at the end of the presentation, I can give you the source and everything, like a source document. But yeah, like so they have these RCT studies, and like devs who purely used AI, especially like devs who were like just saying to the AI, can you do this thing, do this thing, do this thing, and like not really like putting any like logic or conceptual logic into it, were actually like scored like 17% lower. And it's a bit better if you do like conceptual users of AI, but actually the real one who still mastered was the devs who had actually like not coding by hand, I would say, but like have like the biggest like technical understanding of what they're doing, which it should be the case. Maybe in 5 years it won't be the case, right? I'm speaking about like stuff that's happening now, but But yeah, and I think so. If machines handle execution, so humans must master thinking, right? Because that's probably what we have left, because we don't really have execution anymore. So I was recently on a US tour. I was speaking at Harvard actually 2 days ago for BNB Chain. We're doing a US tour to see like all US students in college. So we're doing like Harvard, MIT, Stanford, Berkeley. And when you speak with students, like you feel like there is like a huge, like everyone is a bit lost. Like students are like, yeah, like what should I do with my life? Because now they have like a 4% employment rate after like 3 months or 6 months, whereas it was like 50% before COVID. So there is like a lot of things that are impacting us, and I think like focusing on like mastering like the conceptual stuff can really like help you. And so there is a bunch of experimental schools in the US who actually like arrived recently. And so so what I did is like I found employees on Twitter, like, you know, like 50 followers Twitter. And I called them. And so I called employees from like Alpha School. I tried to find as well some employee for like Astra and Synthesis. So they all have those kind of like program. So that's what they claim, right? Here's what they claim. Like, so Alpha School is like 2 hours learning, AI adapted app. So basically they have like an apps for every every knowledge, right? From mathematics, physics. Like they have like 80 different apps they're developing internally. And they claim to be like top 1% net score. So this is based on like what parents are saying on some obscure forums, right? So I spent a bunch of time reading those things. So Astronova is a bit different, like, as this was actually found by Elon Musk like a while ago, and then it got sold and whatsoever, but like no age segregation, which is a bit weird to me, but like, because there is this thesis in education that like there should not be age segregation. So this is there is different, this is kind of like a neuroscience and education science is like, is the same as for all science and research, right? There is some people that have like different like thesis, and like I mean, you can agree or not with that, right? So, and they basically base the entire curriculum on like ethical debates, right? So I will ask an ethical question here and people will debate with me, and that's the entire curriculum. And the funny thing is like they redo everything every 3 times a year. They start again from zero and they redraft the entire curriculum, which is, I mean, very interesting to me. Most of those schools here, fees are like from like 10 to like 50K a year. So it's very expensive. So what they're actually doing right is like most of them are using on purpose, right? So they're including a bunch of like kind of like neuroscience or like kind of like proved techniques that we will see after, which is like retrieval practice, and like they still have those kind of like mastery gate, right? You still need to pass a test to advance, to validate that you have a certain level. Alpha School, for example, is like tracking really well, I think from like an online perspective, like if people are cheating on the test or not. So it's really hard to like pass it if you don't have the level. So yeah, so I call employees. The developers the software, like it's a bunch of, so basically like as far as cool, I think the funding is like 1 billion. Like there was a guy Joel Yemer, we did like most of those people are basically they did like internet startup in the 90s. They got a lot of money. Like this guy like retired completely from like politics, like and media life, because he didn't wanted to be bothered with journalists for like more than 20 years, and then like end up like, hey, like this thing for education, because he had children, so he was just like, oh, I want to educate my children as well, so how does it work? And so then he invested in the 1 billion of his personal fund into it. But you always have like, it's always a bit interesting when you speak with them, because you feel like they have very opinionated ideas, and at some point, like they like funnel in one direction, and we will see there is some examples that proves that maybe in education they should be a bit like more flexible on other inputs. And so reasoning and problem solving before content delivery, which is probably like one of the best key points for those schools, is they really focus on like having people, and especially children and students. So most of those schools are actually K-12 school, right? It's not for like a bachelor's and master degree. So K-12 is like it's like middle school, high school, right? It's like, it's not, they don't have like curriculum for bachelor's and master first yet. To be honest, today I don't know if I would recommend to someone to go through a master, right? I'm teaching master students, so when I see master students, I'm just like, finish a master. It makes sense, right? But when I see people who are just telling me like, hey, I'm in bachelor 1, I'm just like, should you stop? You know, it's like, or maybe do, you know, it's like, I'm not 100% sure if this model still makes sense. So what they're getting wrong, zero independent verification is very important, right? All of them refuse to have independent verification. That's very bad. It's very bad. So every result is self-reported. It's reported by parents, though. So like parents for Alpha School. I read some stuff about it was parents forums. They have some forums with parents. So but you don't have the problem is those schools are like maximum. I think Alpha is like 5 years old. And now they're opening, they had like one campus in Austin, then they open like 30 campus, then they open 100. So it's very new, so they don't really have some depths to know, okay, we don't have the time to know, and the feedback. Selection bias, of course, this is very expensive school, and US parents are like very involved in children's education, like the very wealthy family. So there is a huge selection bias, because if the children doesn't perform well, it will be like what they do in I don't know, like in Japan, Korea, you have children taking class till 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. It will be the same, right? So they come for very wealthy family. So there is a huge bias, and this is something that I note when I call them is is it really innovative, or is it just we do an app that looks like it's an AI native, super nice app, but actually it's just like Duolingo. It was I'm still dubitative. They're launching something from home very soon, right? They will have this full remote campus, so I'll probably try to enroll myself. If it costs 10K, anyway, I will spend them just to see what it looks like. But it's from my understanding of it, for now it really looks like not that super AGI education that they would want to sell you, right? So the science that actually works, because there is actually some neuroscience studies, so we will see a bit of statistics. So there is the Cohen's D and the HSG for people who did statistics. This is just basically for standard deviation, right? So if you see 0.5, it means the student who did the program performed 69% better than the base, the sample, right? You always have a base and you have the other cohort. So this is just for people who never saw that. Yes, so what works? So retrieval practice, right? So basically walking to, you have you learn something and you need to learn it again. You need to by searching for the answer, right? This can be also included in basically testing. Testing is a retrieval practice. So that works well, and there have been hundreds of replications. So this one is quite proven. Interleaving. So interleaving is basically when you mix something with another one. So if you mix I don't know, math, and you mix music with it, people will probably learn better. Math and music at the same time. So there is interesting case like this, for, I don't know if some of you are studying language, but actually if you're studying two language that you don't know, you learn faster than studying from one that you already know. That's what most of people are doing, right? But if you're studying, I don't know, Russian and Chinese at the same time, will force your brain to study way better than if you study my native language, French, for example, and English. So that's something to try. Space repetition. So this one, very useful as well. I'm using it to learn Chinese right now. Super useful. So basically, space repetition, there is some coefficient and deep research on that. I will do full presentation on it. But basically, space repetition is you have a coefficient of when your brain is retaining 80% of the information. You should relearn this information to re-input it in your brain. And so every time it will decay way slower. So there is a formula for that. But yeah, usually it's you learn a word the first day, then you learn it, you see it again the second day, then 2 days or 3 days after. And if you remember it, then you can continue like this. And after 10 or 12 repetition, the next repetition will be more than a year. So that's very, very useful to learn vocabulary and words. So I have 1,000 words in Chinese in a few months, because this works very well, and there is some software. So there is one for Chinese that is designed, but you can code it yourself with Claude in 2 minutes now for anything you want to learn. Yeah, it works, right? That's the cool thing about AI. You can code personalized softwares in 1 second. And desirable difficulty. So this kind of things something that you learn should be difficult enough for you to like retain something. So if you learn something and you feel it's like too easy, as it means you don't learn anything. But at the same time, if it's too hard, then your brain will be like, like it's too hard, I'm stopping, right? So like if you're trying to take like, I don't know, like PhD math classes and you don't have like the middle school knowledge. I mean, even if you have the middle school knowledge, you won't understand anything, that's too much. But at the same time, if you try to learn like a middle school concept, but you have a PhD, it's like, you won't learn anything. And so what doesn't work, so there is like this kind of research, like a school that was doing like 1-1 tutorial and was saying that they had like a standard deviation of like 100%. Like, I mean, standard deviation was 2 basically, it's like 100% better than the original cohort. Actually, the tutoring effect, so there is a real effect to that, but it's not like 2. Like there is no one that can do 2, like this guy was lying, we will see just after. Learning styles, actually there is no learning styles. It's like the state of research today really goes more around like a general kind of like intelligence, right? Like just one intelligence that is have like different factors. But there was like some studies from like a while ago that was saying there is like 8 types. And I mean, a bunch of people write papers about it. This is still an ongoing discussion, right? 2023 is very new. But apparently it's like mostly like one general knowledge with like different like ponderation, but there is no like 8 space in your brain with like those all different like sectors. I mean, we didn't saw it with brain imagery, at least yet. And so growth mindset is interesting, like telling your children, like if you want, you can do it, right? So this works, but this works for children who already have a lot of difficulties and for specific subgroups. But the problem is that it doesn't pass the scale, right? So if you do like that for every children, the actual effect is like less than 1%. So you can do it. I mean, because you never know, maybe your children has difficulty and you can want to push him. And I don't think it hurts to do it, right? It doesn't hurt. What it says doesn't hurt, but it doesn't work. It's not an universal thing because a lot of like it was included in a lot of class and a lot of course, but it's not really effective at scale. Oh, yeah. So we have to be careful because like so there is those schools who try some stuff. And they were not like very successful. So this one, so Bloom Tech was very interesting. So basically Bloom Tech was saying like the education is free, and then you give us like 17% of your income for like a bit of time to pay till like some kind of money. This is something I think is interesting. You have free education, and then you give a bit of your income for like a few years to pay for the education after. I think that's way smarter than paying before, getting into debt, and then having to like work for like 30 years to pay because you get like APIs, crazy APIs in the US, right? But the problem is like they claim like 86% placements, the real placements mostly around like 30, 50 if you push it. And so the school got banned from lending to people because like one default was like, you got like 30K to pay in collateral after. I mean, so they got banned and like the CEO is like blacklisted from a bunch of institutions in the US right now. Alt school, they raised a lot of money and they failed. Like it's the same as crypto, right? You raise a lot, you can also fail sometimes. It's like so it's the same for edtech. It's a very risky investment. And MOOCs. So I mean, I think most of you heard about MOOCs, right? So there is hundreds of thousands of people who enrolled into MOOCs, right? The problem is like there is some very interesting studies from University of Pennsylvania, UPenn. On average, people, there is like 4% completion on the studies they did. And like most of people who are actually completing are the people who already have degrees. So it's like meanings like, yeah, like you still need some kind of like motivation. But yeah, like sometimes fancy keyword like MOOCs, we also that like 5 years ago was a trendy thing. Like every company was just like, you should do a MOOCs. It's asking DevRels or like the education people, HR, you should do MOOCs for employees. But yeah, maybe people are not completing it. So what does this mean for developer education? So there is still a very big bias on like, reasoning first thesis, right? So you have to like teach people to reason first. So logical reasoning is the first one predictor of programming success. So I think that's great for us, right? It's just like because there is still some things that is true about what we learn in school, right? It's like you have to learn the logic and you will be successful. And this philosophy for children with like a quite interesting coefficient is like basically the peer programming. This is basically like a peer programming. It's like if you speak with people and you discuss with people about like philosophical questions. So what, for example, you can do as a stateless consensus conference today, right? If you go there, is like usually you have like better developments of ideas, and it also improve your brain efficiency. So yeah, like today we don't need people to code, right? We need to teach them or to think and then let them code. And so for that, I would just like, yeah. So for that, five points. Try to keep it brief. So yeah, teaching reasoning before syntax with architecture workshop, threat modeling, invariant thinking. Right, it's very basic in programmation, especially in Solidity. It's super important. This thing. Rich reward practice, quizzes in the workshop. I do that all the time now. Every time I present something, maybe not today, but I do like a Kahoot quiz. It works very well, especially for young people. Really engage the audience. Open outcome data, this is something I will try to run. I need to ask my team if I can do it. It's like publishing every result of what we're doing. I think it's something we're not doing enough in DevRel. It's like you run a program, what was the outcome, right? So other people don't burn money like and millions into it. Interleave so mix Solidity, security, economics in the same session. And yeah, like treat hackathon as a real classroom. So project-based, time-pressured hackathons are really like you're spending a lot of money on it. So yeah, like we should really like use it as like a lab, the testing lab. And yeah, so the best experiments to school, yeah, they figured out one thing, just like stop teaching answers and yeah, like start teaching thinking. And I think that's what we should do in developer education. We just need to like use the few neuroscience stuff that are like proven or in some part proven today. And yeah, just apply mentorship and use the space we have to do it. Thanks a lot. So this is my Twitter if people want to follow me. And then I don't think I have time for question. Yeah. So, but yeah, I will stay here to answer question or just outside if you want. Thanks a lot.